Good afternoon, everyone. I am Christina Wigrin with Stilly Valley Health Connections. I want to thank you for joining us for our monthly budget-friendly series. This month, we are welcoming back Kelsey Baker from Sound Dietitians to discuss the topic of budget-friendly proteins. For everyone who is joining us live, please note that this class is set up in a Zoom webinar format. This means that all of our participants are muted and your videos are turned off so that we can record the presentation. If you would like to leave any questions or comments, we encourage you to do so by using the chat box or the Q&A box, both which are located at the bottom of your screen. And now I will pass it over to Kelsey so she can get started. Thank you for being here, Kelsey, and thank you to those of you who have joined us so far. We hope that you enjoyed this class and learn a lot.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, Stilly Valley Health Connections, for hosting this class. So as Christina mentioned, to this month's topic for the budget-friendly series is all about protein. I know protein options are quite expensive right now, so I thought this would be a really timely topic to go over, and I hope you guys can walk away with a lot of ideas on how to incorporate it. So let's jump in. So our goals for today's presentation is to answer what is a protein and how does it serve our bodies and why it's so important. We want to compare budget-friendly sources of protein. There's many different sources out there, and we just want to see which ones are going to be the easiest on our wallets. Provide practical cooking and shopping tips of how to get these items and how to cook them up easily. And then review, because I think this is everybody's favorite recipe ideas, and really put what we learn into practice on our plates. But before I go to the next slide, I just wanted to open up to the people who are here live. If anyone would want to share what is like a go-to protein option, like maybe it's budget friendly, maybe it's not, and you're thinking, I spend too much money on this, I need something to substitute it with it. And maybe by the end of class, you'll have that answer, or maybe you have a budget friendly one that you like to use and you would want to share with the group. I can start it off while people are thinking and maybe typing in the chat. My go-to lately has been lentils. They are a plant-based protein, a legume, and they're very easy to prepare. They come in different colors and can be incorporated in a whole bunch of different dishes that we'll talk about, and very budget friendly. So that's kind of been what I've been trying to focus on using in my household more recently. All right, we got a quiet group tonight. It's okay. I just want to, oh, maybe here's one. Chicken. Okay. Yes, and there's many different types of chicken, and there's a way to make chicken more budget friendly. So, but chicken is a great animal source protein. It's a complete protein, which I'll explain what that is in a minute. But I know people are feeling the burden of the rising costs of animal proteins. So maybe we can talk about a substitute throughout this presentation for chicken. I love it. It's easy. It's versatile. Thank you, Rebecca, for sharing. All right, we will move on. So why budget-friendly protein matters. First, cost savings. Our wallets are tapped out going to the grocery store. I think it's a lot of households' most expensive bill other than their rent or their mortgage. It's a lot to go shopping right now. And what I'm seeing is because protein options, like the typical ones, the meat options are getting more and more expensive, especially beef right now. I don't know if anyone else has seen that like 10 to 15% increase just in the last year. And might be feeling that in your budgets. So trying to find other options to substitute that with that are just as rich of a source is really important, because what I'm seeing when I'm working with clients one-on-one or just hearing people talk is maybe they're not buying it and it's not part of their daily intake. And so they're having a lower intake of protein overall, which leads to our second point is health, and protein is very, very much an essential part of our diet. It is one of the three main macronutrients. So we have protein, we have fat, and we have carbohydrates. And all three of these are necessary to be in our diet on a daily basis to keep us healthy. And by healthy, I mean keep our organs healthy, our skin healthy, our immune system strong. Also, protein helps keep us feeling fuller longer. It helps that satiated feeling. So whenever I'm working with clients, I'm always telling them try to pair protein with your carbohydrate source, and that will help keep your blood sugar balanced, which is less maybe like snacking on random items throughout the day. And the more snacks we're having throughout the day can lead to us spending more money. So that would be another reason to try to be purposeful about including it each time that we eat. And then finally, kind of to sum up those first two bullets is sustainability benefits. Our choices that we make contribute to ensuring that there's nutritious meals and access for everyone, especially in these times where there's a lot of cutbacks on funding for different like WIC and different benefits to get food at a low cost or from like a food bank type place. It can be hard, and so if we're making conscious choices, it just kind of it helps others in our community. So understanding protein, I kind of wanted to geek out with you guys here for a minute, just to maybe highlight why it's so important. And I feel like information is power. And so just a little quick learning lesson on protein and what it is. It is an essential nutrient, meaning we have to get it from our diet. Our bodies don't just make it itself. So we have to eat it in some form, and it's made of building blocks called amino acids. And there are nine essential amino acids, again, meaning these are amino acids that we have to consume from food. Our bodies aren't going to make them up. And these are important, as I mentioned, I got a little head, muscle, skin, organ health, immune system, and so much more, but those would probably be the main functions. And it is an energy source for our body. So maybe a lot of us know that carbohydrates creates energy or calories, but also protein and fat do as well. So it's one more way for our body to have energy throughout the day and create energy for other systems in our body. So when we're talking about protein and how we absorb it and utilize it once we eat it, there's kind of some different parts to break down here. So the first kind of term is digestibility. Some people might hear this as also bioavailability, but pretty much it's meaning that the more of those amino acids within that protein source that you're eating that are absorbed in your gut or your small intestine, um, the greater the digestibility. So, like an animal protein, like your chicken, your beef, your fish, those have a 90 to 100% digestibility, meaning we break that down when we eat it, and then we absorb almost essentially all of it and use those amino acids for different functions within our body, and for the other health parts that I had listed earlier. Whereas plant proteins have about 70% digestibility. So there's amino acids within those plant proteins, but they're not as accessible for our body to like break down and absorb. This isn't a bad thing. 70% is still very, very high. And we just have to make sure we're eating a wide variety of them, especially if we're on a solely plant-based diet, and or we really mix them in with some animal proteins. But I'm not, plant proteins can definitely and should be part of our daily diets and can kind of help spread out those animal proteins, to make sure we're meeting our daily requirements, and are also a lot more budget friendly, as we will see. So a little bit more into that, a complete protein versus incomplete. Animal proteins, again, have all 9 of those essential amino acids versus a plant protein will be low in 1 or more. So that's why it's so important to eat a variety. Like we don't just eat beans or we don't just eat sorry, I'm totally just blanking on an example. Like a whole grain that has protein. We want to make sure that we're getting a wide variety. And then, but there is a slight exception, as there is to most things in life. There are 2 plant-based proteins, soy and quinoa, do have all 9 of those essential amino acids. So therefore, they're considered a complete protein. So that was a lot. So I'm just going to pause there. And if anyone has any questions and or kind of needs me to clarify anything, I'm happy to try. It can get very complicated very quickly, but again, I think it's kind of important to kind of know these differences. And there's also just random buzzwords and marketing that occur out there that can create kind of like a food fear, or we shouldn't be having that, or like the myth busting at the bottom, like protein has to come from meat, and that's just simply not true. We just have to be mindful and purposeful about how we meet those protein needs. So most adults, again, there's always exception to this, but this is kind of the rule of thumb right now, and what we know with science and research is that we need 0.8 to 1.0 grams per kilogram of body weight. So you would take your body weight, convert it to kilograms, and then do that, and then multiply it by the 0.8 to 1.0 to kind of get a range of how much you would need for the day. So that's kind of between 45 and 70 grams on the average weight of a human. Obviously, there is a wide range here, and I work with clients on all ends of the spectrum of this. But this is a very, very general need. If you want to know your personal needs, then you would want to work with a healthcare professional to try to figure out what your range would be. Again, I'm just seeing if there's any questions. Okay, move on. Okay, so since this is all about budgeting, I'm gonna show this graph here. This is a graph that gives us kind of a breakdown of protein cost per serving. And so here we have the name of the protein, the package price, our serving size, serving per like a typical package that you would buy, the cost per the serving when you kind of do the math conversion, how much protein is within that serving, and then our cost per 10 grams of protein. And the reason I chose 10 is because that's kind of, I mean, usually I tell adults to get more like 20 at each meal. Again, very, very general recommendation, and this is going to vary. But 10 is just kind of an easy number to think about. And like if we're going for snacks, I say like between 7 and 10. So I just kept it simple like that. But if we look, our least expensive is going to be our dry beans. So these are beans that aren't canned, that you're buying in the bulk section. And then this is, or in like a pre-weighted pound, like this is a bag of dried beans. And then it's per half cup. So once you cook them up and you serve a half cup, you're gonna get it to be 25 cents a serving and 7 grams per serving. And then that kind of goes up as we go down the list, but also the price goes up because as you can see, we're getting into more of those meat options. And unfortunately, those are what's costing more. However, I'm gonna move my little screen again. You will see that there's a lot more grams of protein within these meat options. So it's definitely a balancing act of if you eat animal-based proteins, also including those plant-based ones to make it budget friendly and meet your daily goals for protein. So the takeaway here, I see there's a question or a comment, just one second. The takeaway here is plant proteins stretch your budget when you mix them with animal proteins for balance. Okay, so the question from Alan, what about the protein shakes you can purchase in stores? Are they good source of protein? Some have 25 to 30 grams of protein per 11-ounce serving. Yeah, that's a great question. And I definitely utilize the protein powders and protein drinks when I work with clients, just because sometimes it's just a lot easier to consume them. I don't know that they're necessarily budget friendly. They are a bioavailable or a highly digestible source of protein. Typically, they're either like whey, which is milk, so cow derived, or some are plant-based protein as well. Still going to be higher, as you said, between 25 and 30 grams. I think they're a perfectly acceptable option. I would just want to make sure that we're not relying on those for multiple meals a day. Maybe it's just it's considered it's included like one time a day or as a meal substitute or snack substitute, and then we're getting whole food sources of protein. Um, but yeah, they're definitely accessible and our body will utilize it. The other thing about the protein drinks is they're not going to necessarily have fiber in them and other vitamins and minerals that we would get from our plant-based sources of protein, and even some of the other meat proteins. There's still some vitamins in there that you might not get from the protein shakes. So I hope that answered your question. Yes, they're acceptable. Yes, they are digestible and our bodies utilize them. We just don't want to fully rely on them. Thank you for that question. Because I know a lot of people like to eat like the protein bars and the drinks, and they're out there. Again, budget friendly. I haven't really seen one, but there's a lot of sales, and so that maybe would be the time to stock up on something like that. Okay, so we're going to move into like specific examples of budget-friendly proteins to learn how to maximize nutrition without breaking our bank. So we're going to explore different sources like beans, lentils, eggs, and canned fish, as these tend to be the most budget-friendly and they can have positive changes on your meals and your wallet. They provide essential nutrients, but also help you maintain a balanced diet, and you can be creative and create really delicious, nutritious meals that are quick and easy to prep, but also budget friendly. So, what are they? Legumes. So, legumes are like our different beans and peas. Um, so, we have pictured here some like black beans, red beans, maybe some pinto beans. These are more on these are actually green lentils, and but they also come like red, yellow, like a tan brownish color. These are chickpeas, probably my second favorite plant-based protein, just because they don't have a strong flavor and they're really easy to mix into dishes. And then these are soybeans, and again, remember that soy is actually a complete protein, so we don't have to worry about maybe mixing and matching to get all those 9 essential amino acids. So back to kind of the highlights of these, they're very nutrient dense. They have lots of fiber, all the different plant-based proteins, iron, and magnesium. So iron's great for bone health and immune system health and blood health, and then magnesium has like over 3 different uses within or 300 different uses within the body. It's one of my favorite minerals, and so if we can get it in a natural way, it's going to have a lot of benefits on brain health, on sleep, on heart health, muscle recovery, so many different things, gut health. Beans, like I said, are highly legumes, are highly versatile. They can be used in soups, they can be used in tacos, casseroles, salads, and more. I don't know, maybe while I'm going through this, if anyone wants to chime in and share how they use different legumes. Um, they're very cost effective, especially if you buy them dry and then soak them overnight. That's going to be like the least expensive form of your beans. But canned beans are still very affordable, and then that saves you time and less prep. So kind of play around with the different packaging methods and see how it works for your household. They're shelf stable, so when you get them, they last a long time, and it's kinda if you haven't gone grocery shopping in a while, but you know you always have beans in your pantry, then you know you'll have some kind of protein source in there. And then you'll hear people say pair beans and rice together because rice is maybe not as high in protein, but it does contain one of the amino acids that the beans are low in. So then that pairing ensures that you're getting all nine essential amino acids to get that complete pairing. And then I usually will get a lot of questions of, well, does it have to be within the same meal at the same time? And the answer is no, it does not. Again, we just want to think like throughout our day, throughout the week, are we eating a variety of plant-based? And then our bodies will be able to get and extract what it needs from these plant-based proteins. So some recipe ideas with legumes are like a quick lentil taco or black bean quesadilla. So a lentil taco, you would take your lentils that are already cooked. And I also like these are ones where I splurge a little bit more on the preparation. I sometimes will just buy them pre-cooked in packages. I've seen them at like Safeway and Trader Joe's, and I'm trying to think where else I recently saw them, but it's really nice because then I can just know I have them in the fridge and I can take a spoonful and add it to whatever. But if I were trying to make this quick lentil taco, I'd get my either corn or flour shell tortilla. I would warm up the lentils in a pan and then grab my typical fillings of a taco that I personally like would be like tomatoes and some lettuce and maybe a sprinkle of cheese. Some people might add some avocado. And now we have um, a complete meal within that taco. And making it at home is costing you like around $1.50 a serving versus maybe $4.50 for like a store-bought taco. And by store-bought, I mean more like going to like the taco truck or something like that. Um, Same with the black bean quesadilla. You got your cheese and your beans, and you just put it between the two tortilla shells and fry, and then serve it with some vegetables, and you'll have a complete meal. Okay, so eggs. I know the cost of eggs have gone up. I feel like I talk about this in all of our budget series. However, if you remember from one of the earlier slides, it still is a pretty cost effective, even how ridiculously expensive they have become for what you're getting. And they're extremely versatile and easy to prepare. And they have a lot of other nutrients in them, including vitamin A and choline. Vitamin A is really important for our eye health, and choline is really important for especially like kiddos, like brain development. And adults as well. It's important. So and there's vitamin D and iron and other nutrients within eggs as well. You can use them for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Um, they again really easy to use in different dishes, and they're like I already said, a portable source of high quality protein, meaning you're going to absorb all of that protein within it. Some recipe ideas are egg fried rice. So just that this is something really quick and fun to make. And you can Google recipes for this, but you would maybe chop up some carrots and celery, have some cooked rice, and then just mix in some eggs within that. And that can be a complete little meal, that egg rice bowl. Or yeah, frozen veggies, which is listed here. Maybe you don't even have to cut anything up, and you just throw it all together in a frying pan, and it's ready very quickly. Mini veggie egg muffins. I love pre kind of batch cooking these for the weeks, and then you just reheat them to have for breakfast, or maybe throw in a lunchbox and eat them cold for lunch. And there you can throw any kind of vegetable, or if you want to up your protein, would be where we add in some kind of meat option. I've also seen recipes, now I'm thinking about it, where you take eggs and you make these muffins and you add cooked quinoa. And remember, quinoa is another complete source of plant-based protein, but this would also boost your B vitamins and just the overall protein content. So again, many options. And then I just thought of another recipe that I do with a lot of cooking demos called shakshuka, where you take eggs and you crack them within a hot pan of tomato sauce and maybe a few other veggies that you want to throw in there, like peppers and onions. And then you create like little bowls and you crack the eggs within the little bowls. And then you can serve that over pasta or rice or quinoa, and you'll have a nice, complete, warm meal that can be enjoyed any time of the day. Oh, someone's saying they make their own veggie muffins as well. Yeah, it's super simple, and it's a great meal prep option to do. And if you have kiddos in your home, it's kind of something fun for them to get involved with. Okay. So some budget-friendly protein. Now we're talking about canned fish. Their fish is an extremely rich, nutrient-dense item. It has really good fats called these omega-3 fatty fat acids. So I try to, if people are open to it, have people include fish once to twice a week in their meal planning. And again, can be very versatile, adding to salads and sandwiches or pasta dishes. And it's also something really easy to mix with other plant-based proteins. This is one of my hacks that I do to make like a tuna fish sandwich. Go further, or you don't even have to put it between bread if you don't want to. You can just kind of do it like a tuna salad. But you take a can of tuna fish and you take a can of chickpeas or garbanzo beans. Drain those, rinse them off, put them in the same bowl as your drained tuna fish, and then add, whatever seasoning you like. And then you could do mayo, you could do ranch dressing, you could do vinaigrette style dressing, just something to give it a little bit of moisture. Sometimes I even dump, like if I have a can of pickles and I chop up pickles and put in it, and then I'll dump a little bit of the liquid of the pickle juice, just trying to use it all, but just to moisten it up, and then you mash it and stir it all together. Now you've made that one can of tuna fish that might be enough for one person or two, to maybe making it like into two or three, maybe four meals, depending on like who you're feeding, but it really spreads it really quickly. Like for my house, so my with my partner and my son and me and my daughter now, because she's eating whole foods, I'll do 2 cans of tuna, 1 can of the chickpeas, and then I'll put it like either on bread or on top of like some kind of pasta, and that will feed us all dinner. And it's extremely inexpensive, extremely quick, and example of using kind of those shelf stable pantry items. And then that's kind of the last point, is a lot of the canned fish does last a long time on the shelves. Kit is saying that she uses hard-boiled eggs to can tuna to stretch it. Yeah, that's a great idea as well. And a couple hard-boiled eggs is definitely going to cost less money than the can of tuna fish. And then to buy cans of tuna fish, just I think the best option for a quality one that's like packed in water and low in salt or no salt all added is shopping at like Costco or Walmart and kind of getting like the 5 or 6 pack. Okay. So this might be a lot of stuff I already said because I tend to get ahead of myself, but just to review, so maximizing protein on a budget. The practical strategies for affordable protein shopping and storage. So first, we're going to buy a variety of plant and animal based that can be stored in all parts of your kitchen. So we want to think of stuff that can be stored um, in the pantry, like literally a pantry on the shelves, stuff in the refrigerator, stuff in the freezer. And we're going to go through some examples here in a minute. We're going to buy in bulk. Going to pair unit prices. We've talked a lot about this in the past. So seeing like if you're going to buy it fresh versus frozen, sometimes the fresh is going to be the better price, especially if it's on sale. So you just want to do that quick comparison, and see what's the better price, and if you have room in your kitchen for that item. But just doing that quick check can definitely save money over time. And then again, we're going to pair canned versus dry and fresh versus frozen. So an example of canned versus dry are your beans, right? So you can either get them canned and kind of save that step from cooking. However, when we do know that the dry version is going to be less money, it just takes a little bit more prep work. So it's kind of what fits into your daily, weekly routine. And fresh versus frozen would be like chicken. I know I've seen it at Costco, like by the pound, fresh versus buying like the frozen bag. I say like right now it's about $1 difference per pound. I have to double check that again, but I remember I was like buying the fresh and then just throwing it in the freezer, and I'm like, why am I spending more money? I should just be buying the frozen because that's what I'm doing with it anyway. So unless I'm not planning on using it that night and I need it thawed out, I have now switched the frozen to help save some money there. You want to batch cook individual ingredients and then also batch cook like full meals to kind of help. This is kind of more of a time saving, but also budget saving. So individual ingredients, you would maybe boil up 6 or 12 eggs, depending on how many people you have in your house. So you can use them and add them to different things throughout the week. Or you would batch cook a couple cups of a whole grain or some beans or lentils or whatever it is, that you can easily just grab and put into something, put into a taco, put on top of a salad, put in a soup, whatever it is. Then also, if you are going to make a soup or stew, or especially this time of year, maybe make a little bit bigger of a batch so you can freeze half of it and then have it for easy thawing out later in the next month or a couple months. Stuff can usually last for like 3 to 6 months in the freezer. And then, as mentioned, we're going to mix and match our animal and plant-based proteins and dishes to make it more affordable, but also add a lot of nutrition because those plant-based ones have just so many different wonderful nutrients. And it's so important to get that variety. And then maybe think about using a protein rotation. So if it's too much to think about like having 4 different proteins in a day, and you're kind of the type of person that just likes to eat the same thing in one day. So maybe you eat chicken one day, but the next day you're eating like different beans. And so that way you have kind of a day of animal protein and then a day of plant-based protein. And then maybe the next day you're doing some eggs and the next day you're doing some canned fish. This way you're getting the variety some way, somehow. If it's too much to think about of trying to get different ones at each meal, you could definitely just rotate by the day. Or you could rotate by the meal, like maybe every breakfast you're having eggs, and every lunch you're having some kind of bean, and every dinner that's when you have your meat source. And I don't know that I was like totally clear on the serving size of a meat source of proteins, but on one of those previous slides and at the bottom it said how much a serving of a protein, like a pound of hamburger is. So no one's going to sit down and eat a pound of hamburger. It's typically like 3 to 4 ounces is what I recommend, maybe 5 ounces depending on the person at a meal. And then making sure you have other components at the meal, like vegetables and some kind of whole grain or other starch, whether it's like pasta, um, but making sure that your plate isn't being totally consumed by the meat, because that's going to be really expensive and then it's going to be but more like 6 to 10 ounces, but there's really no need to have that much at one sitting. And if we're pairing that serving of 3 to 4 ounces with other plant-based sources, then you will have a a complete meal with an ample amount of protein. Because usually an animal source of protein, like a 3 or 4 ounce serving, has anywhere from like 20 to 30 grams within that. So it's a lot. And then if you have a few other things on your plate, then you're well over the 20 to 25 grams and at that meal. Okay, so just to have specific items, because sometimes brainstorming or looking up things, if people want to screenshot this, they can. But some budget protein pantry list items, so ones that are shelf stable, I just thought I'd list them out for ideas. But these are great to have on hand because they last a long time and they're very affordable. But canned tuna, salmon, or sardines, just making sure they're packed in the water. You could do the oil packed ones as well. Just know what kind of oil they're packing it in and just making sure they're low sodium or no added sodium. Canned chicken, there's Costco has a great deal on like a 5 or 6 pack of that. Canned beans, black pinto, kidney, garbanzo, chickpeas, and white beans are examples. There are canned lentils out there, although I usually see them more in the dry section and cooking them up, or like I said, they're already cooked and then you're just using them. Canned chili or soups with beans slash meat. Just again, always look for that lower sodium option. And there is such thing as shelf stable tofu. Um, this is also an item that's really inexpensive for the refrigerator section as well. And remember, tofu comes from soy, and this is a complete source of protein. And just a reminder or tip, when you buy your canned beans or fish, just do a little rinse before having them, because if there is sodium in there, it can reduce that. It also, for beans, if you feel like beans give you a stomach ache or make you bloat a lot, they rinsing off that liquid can help with that bloating. And maybe you don't eat a lot of beans. I'm just gonna make sure that you guys can. Okay. If you don't eat a lot of beans, you're like, they make me really gassy. Like it's not something I really want to include. Just start out really slow, and it's kind of training your body of how to handle that extra fiber. Just some comments that people shared. Someone said I use the Costco canned chicken breast a lot. Yeah, it's cost effective and very versatile. And someone else is also using that. And then they batch cook rice and freeze it in Ziploc bags for later use. That's an awesome idea, just so you can have more of a quick and easy way to use it. Do I recommend using My Plate? I'm assuming the My Plate is referring to like the government My Plate of how to portion your food on your plate. And yes, I do recommend that. I think it's a very great starting point. And then if you have like a specific ailment or health condition that you're working with, maybe get one-on-one help. But I think that's a great place to start to ensure you're getting a balanced meal and meeting all those nutrient recommendations. Um, Someone said, I find buying dried lentils less costly and easy to hydrate. Yes, I would agree with that. And then adding some veggies to that, and that's a great way to balance it out. Same with some beans. And yep, I like this. This all reduced costs. Great ideas. I love that everybody's sharing tofu with red curry. Yum, that sounds really good and warm right now. And it's a lot less expensive to make than like a chicken curry. So many ideas. I love it. Thank you all for participating. Okay, so some dry goods and bulk staples that are also kind of to think about for the pantry are, so this is like not the canned, but the like before they get canned version of the dried beans. Again, we kind of already talked about what those are. The lentils, split peas are also a great source in the dried, and you can easily rehydrate those and cook them up. Quinoa, remember, contains all the essential amino acids. Oats, believe it or not, does have some protein and fiber, and they're a great item to mix with other items to kind of stretch that item. So an example to be more clear here. So like when I make a meatloaf, instead of using breadcrumbs, I will use oats, and I'll either grind them up or I'll just leave them in their whole. And I will mix like a cup to like 1 pound of ground meat, and then and maybe throw an egg or two in there and all these other things, but that's a way to stretch that beef to make a meatloaf into one that can serve the family for the night with possibly some leftovers the next day. But oats are oats are definitely not something to be forgotten and are very versatile. There's this stuff called textured vegetable protein, TVP. It's also shelf stable. It's a soy protein, and it kind of has the texture of ground beef or ground meat. Nut and seed butters are also a source of protein. Maybe not always the most cost effective, but definitely important to include, and can definitely be added to other items. And then there's powdered peanut butter, which that PV2, I don't know if anyone's seen that, but really easy to add to like smoothies or yogurt, and it has a longer shelf life. I've seen that in Costco as well. And then buying seeds in the bulk section is definitely going to be your most cost-effective way to utilize seeds and the whole grains, such as we already talked about rice and oats, but corn, quinoa, couscous, farro, millet. These are all other examples of grains that will have some protein in them. And seeds are great for adding, like maybe sprinkle on top of some salad or make some like flax or chia within oatmeal just to boost up that protein a little bit, but you're also going to get some healthy fats and extra fiber. And then when you buy it in bulk, it can last a long time in your pantry and be a great addition to your meals. And just as a reminder, buying dried beans in 1 to 2 pound bags or bulk bins can save up to 70% compared to the canned. But I know there's more prep, so everybody's time is precious. Okay, so our budget, protein, pantry list, these are items for our refrigerator and more affordable animal proteins, but nice to have on hand to make low cost meals. Eggs, kind of already gone over this. Low fat cottage cheese or Greek yogurt is great for breakfast or a snack, and then you pair it with some fruit, and you have a balanced little snack there. Or if you want to do breakfast, maybe you take a Greek yogurt, sprinkle some seeds, add some fruit, and that would be a nice dense protein dense breakfast. Tofu or tempeh, these are high protein soy based plant based options, very inexpensive compared to buying a pound of meat. Milk also has gone up, but still, when compared to other sources, can be affordable, especially for how much you get per cup. And then cheese, again, this can vary widely in price, but there are options out there that we could like use to sprinkle or add on items and would add extra fat and protein. And then just as a tip, eggs and dairy often go on sale. So when they do, and you have the room and you know you're going to use it, because we don't want to be throwing anything away, I would stock up on these when their prices drop. And eggs last a while in the refrigerator. Okay, we're getting there, I promise. Some freezer proteins. These are more for long-term savings, but they're great for stretching your budget and reducing waste. So frozen edamame, which are soybeans. Again, I've seen these at Costco. They're great, and they sell them in individual packages. And then you open them up, you throw them in a bowl, heat them up, maybe add some seasoning or soy sauce or something to them. And it's just a really fun snack, especially for kids. Frozen peas, they're very mild tasting and very easy to mix in with soups or pastas, or kind of any kind of like warm one pot dish meals. And it adds color, it adds fiber, and a pretty good boost of protein. Frozen fish fillets, so pollock, tilapia, and salmon. You can find the salmon sometimes on sale. I know that tends to be more expensive, but you can find it on sale, or you can find it pretty good. Again, I keep mentioning Costco. I swear I'm not sponsored by them, but they have their highlights of different items. But you could buy kind of one of their fillets and maybe freeze up part of that. Frozen cooked beans or lentils. You can, again, someone already mentioned this, portion them out for batch cooking. And then veggie burgers or bean patties. I've seen these if you walk down the grocery aisles of Safeway or Fred Meyer, Trader Joe's, like there are options, and these often do go on sale. So sometimes this is like nice to have like 1 or 2 boxes of these in the freezer as like a go-to item if we're running low on groceries or need a quick option. Let's just check this chat. Okay. If you find to eat a lot of beans or rice, you can buy the large bags at Costco, yep, and then break them down and store in airtight jars. Yes, this is a very good idea, the storing part of how to keep all this fresh. Yeah, where to store the jars if your kitchen's all packed, that can be tricky. Sun butter and bananas, yeah, any kind of nut butter or seed butter go great with fruit and is a good example of pairing a protein with a carbohydrate. Frozen 10-pound chub of ground turkey is a good deal at Winco. Yeah, Winco is also a great place for buying animal-based proteins. And then taking the time to chunk it up and put part in the freezer and then plan how you're going to use the other part during the week. Ground chicken mixed with ground turkey. Yep. Purchased in bulk at Costco or Walmart or Winco saves money as well. Yes. Yep. Very good ideas. Thank you. Okay, because I just love charts. They make things so clear. I thought I would do another one for you, but these are the top 10 most affordable proteins, cost per serving. And again, we can just kind of read through. These are all items that we have discussed, and you can see how much they cost per serving and then how many grams of protein you're getting from them. But again, if anyone wants to screenshot this, these would be, if you can eat all these foods items, that would be worthwhile stocking up in your kitchen to ensure you meet your protein goals without totally breaking the bank. And then here is an example of what one day would look like if your goal is around 60 grams of protein. So for breakfast, we make some of those veggie egg muffins that we talked about, and you'd have 2 of them and pair it with some fruit. And then for lunch, some lentil soup with whole grain toast, assuming that lentil soup kind of has some vegetables and other things in it, and then the whole grain toast. Different breads can have more protein depending on their individual ingredients, but there are, like Dave's Killer, I want to say that is it the 21 grain, like their most popular one, but like per slice of bread, I think there's 5 or 6 grams of protein in that. So that would be for lunch. Snack, peanut butter and apple slices or any other nut butter, seed butter with some fruit, and then tuna and white bean pasta salad. So we got, if we had this, if this was our day, we would have around 60 grams of protein and it would be $5.55 on average. And these prices come from like national averages, and then it's broken down into kind of West Coast, because the West Coast and Washington State tends to be a little bit more expensive with groceries. And then we broke it down even more to Snohomish County, but it's usually the kind of the store-bought brands and maybe like some middle of the road brands is kind of how these prices are figured. Just some more recipes to share with you that are budget friendly. If you were to Google some bean chili, there's going to be a lot of variations. Also a great way of showing how to stretch like ground turkey or ground chicken or ground beef, because you're adding it into a whole pot of all these different beans, and you stretch that out, but you could probably get 2 nights worth of dinner with just that 1 pound of meat, because you added it with other plant-based sources of protein. Lentil salad, great. You could eat just a bowl of this, or you could add dollops of that to different dishes. Frittata, again, very versatile and can add different veggies and cheese to make a a simple dish and recipe that's protein rich, and frittata is good for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Egg salad, someone kind of already mentioned this and how they mix it with the tuna salad to spread the can of tuna. And again, easy thing to whip up very quickly. Tuna pasta, so cooking up some whole grain noodles and then adding some canned tuna fish that maybe add a few little things to and sprinkle some Parmesan. Tuna patties or salmon cakes. Again, if you find like some salmon on sale, or you have some salmon that's in the freezer that maybe kind of didn't freeze very well, but you thawed it out and it's like falling apart, don't throw it away. Just use it to make a salmon cake. And it's super simple. You can Google different recipes for that. And then maybe some salad wraps with one of the canned fish or chicken options. All right, some final tips to send you all off with. You want to try something different. If one protein isn't available or it's getting too expensive, then try another. Of all the ones that we talked about, like this is an opportunity to try something new. Maybe you didn't like it 10 years ago, and so you just have told yourself you don't like it, but I'm here to tell you our taste buds change throughout our lifespan, and sometimes we have to try something more than once and you might like it, or it could just be the way that we're preparing it, and maybe we just need to find a different way to prepare it and you might really enjoy it. And tip 2, look for different forms of your favorite protein. Do you usually buy raw beef? Maybe look for frozen, because like I said, I was buying the raw chicken at Costco and I realized it's Sicilian, throwing it in the freezer. So I buy in the frozen and save money. Do you usually get fresh tuna? Maybe try the canned. Love whole raw cashews. Pretty expensive nut. Maybe consider just buying the mixed nut blend instead. Tip 4, go with the less prepared option. So we've already covered this, but the example that's most obvious is buying beans that have not been cooked in any sort of way. So you're buying like the bag or from bulk, and then you're doing the soaking and the cooking of them. And then also for like a meat option here would be buying like maybe the bone-in version, skin on. Like, yes, can be a little bit more of a pain, but it's usually a couple dollars cheaper per pound. So it's kind of weighing our time versus the prepared and how often we can incorporate that in to save money. And everybody's household's different, and you just got to do what's best for you. Tip 4 is make protein just a portion of your entree. So I already covered that. Only having the meat option 3 to 4 ounces, and then making sure there's other options on your plate will definitely save money over the long run. And then eat at home. I think we covered this in many other classes, but only about 30% of consumer costs in a restaurant are for the food. So you're spending a lot of money on a lot of other things when you go to a restaurant, and it's just not affordable compared to trying to prep stuff and cook stuff at home. So if you eat out a lot, maybe that could be the goal that you leave with today, is trying to prepare one more meal during the week and slowly cut down and see how that works for your house. All right, that is all. I am done talking. Let me see. Maybe there's more questions, but thank you so much for joining. Okay, questions. Do sprouted lentils have the same protein? Sprouted will typically have maybe a little bit more, and it's also thought that it's easier for our bodies to like break down, absorb, digest. So that's why we sometimes see like the advertising of the sprouted, of the different whole grains and lentils and items. Purchasing a metal grinder and purchasing whole meats and then grinding the meat for ground meat is less expensive than meat. Grinders aren't that expensive if purchasing at restaurant supply business. So that's a very good tip. If this is something in your budget, or you could ask for as a gift, making that investment, this is an example of making that investment up front can save you money down the road. And it's very, very true. I know my dad, he does a lot of fishing, and to make salmon burgers instead of buying the frozen ones. He just will grind that all up in his metal grinder, and it's really great, and it saves a lot of money doing it that way. And I know he's done other things, but yeah, definitely a good tip if you can make that investment. And then can you please go back to how we determine how much protein we need? Yeah. Let me get that. And then, are you a registered dietitian? Or yes, I am a registered dietitian. Let me see if I can find that slide really quick. It's 0.8 to 1.0 grams per kilogram of body weight. I will write it in here, just going back pretty slow. Grams per kilogram. So what you do is, if you weigh 100 pounds, you would, gotta get my calculator. If you weigh 100 pounds, you divide it by 2.2, and that gives you how much you weigh in kilograms. So 100 pounds divided by 2.2 is 45 kilograms. And then you take that and you times that by 0.08 or 0.8, excuse me. So 45 times by 0.8 is 36. So it would be 36 to 45 would be like your range, assuming there's no other things going on, but that's like the typical range for someone who is 100 pounds of how many grams of protein they should get in a day. Yeah, you're welcome. But definitely, if you have questions around that, or you have any other health concerns, that's where we can be really helpful to work with someone. Heidi shared that she eats the sprouted lentils fresh in salads, easy to make. That sounds really good. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Thank you guys so much for participating. It makes the class a lot more enjoyable for me to teach, and I love seeing the engagement, and thank you. Yeah, thank you for participating, and I look forward to next month's topic, which maybe Christina can tell us, because I don't remember.
Of course. So next month's topic is going to be a budget-friendly breakfast. So
Budget-friendly
we'll have
breakfast, so that'll
some
be
fun
fun.
breakfast options to talk about.
Yeah.
And that one will also be on the fourth Tuesday, my bad. The fourth Tuesday from 4 to 5 p.m. as always.
Okay. Yeah, that is a holiday week, but yeah, and then I think December we move it up.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Perfect. Well, I love all of the questions today, and everyone is so engaged and a lot of great discussion. So thank you to everyone who came on. And yeah, if any more questions come up as I'm speaking, feel free to pop them in the chat. But I did just want to let everyone know that as you are signing off, there will be a quick 6-question survey that will pop up on your screen. If you have any feedback, any questions, we love to hear them. And any ideas for future budget-friendly classes as well, just put those in and we will take that into consideration when we're planning for next year. So thank you guys again. And Kelsey, I can bounce it back to you if you have anything else that you would like to add before we go.
No, I think as always, just this was a lot of information, so just pick like 1 or 2 things to try to work on and incorporate, and you're doing good.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And we hope to see all of you guys back on next month.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.